My family and I recently just took an 8-day cruise out of Miami on the Carnival Horizon, where we sailed to Aruba, Bonaire, and 2 different ports in the Dominican Republic. We stayed in a balcony cabin, we ate all the food, indulged in the drinks package, gambled in the casino, saw a bunch of the entertainment on board, partied on the Lido deck, relaxed in the Serenity Lounge, and even conquered the ropes course. And now it's time to tell you all about it and let you know what we thought of this ship and our experience with Carnival on board the Carnival Horizon. If you're new here, welcome aboard. It may be because you typed Carnival Horizon review or something like that in the search bar, but anyway you found us, I'm really happy you're here. Most of the videos on this channel are about Florida and Florida attractions, so this one is a slight detour, but this ship does sail from Miami, and cruises do bring a lot of people here to Florida, so we do occasionally do some cruise reviews on here when we do take a cruise. And while we do get on a cruise ship about once every other year or so, we're not one of those YouTube cruise expert channels who sail all the time on all the ships. So here, you're just going to get the honest, straightforward opinion of me and the average family who just likes to go on the occasional cruise, and maybe that's you too. And if so, I hope this video helps you decide if you want to sail with Carnival on this ship. Before we get on with our loves and hates, or our likes and gripes about the Carnival Horizon, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our itinerary on this cruise and a short little room tour. We sailed out of the port of Miami with 2 days at sea before reaching Bonaire in the Southern Caribbean, with another stop in Aruba before heading up to the Dominican Republic, where we made a stop at La Romana and then Amber Cove before heading back to Miami. We stayed in a balcony cabin, room 9287 to be exact, where we had our family of 4 all squeezed into one room. And I was a bit concerned it would be a tight squeeze, but honestly, it really wasn't too bad. The bunk bed that dropped from the ceiling helped make great use of the space, and we never actually felt too cramped or the room felt too small, other than all of us sharing one bathroom and one shower for the week, that is. That did get to be a little bit old, but we were able to manage. The room was fairly basic but well maintained, the beds were comfortable enough, no complaints. The room has USB chargers, a safe to keep your valuables, and a mini fridge. You are allowed to bring 12 cans of soda per person on board too, so the fridge does come in handy if you're doing that. Another little tip that you can use with Mini Fridge 4 is you can order a canned beer, but ask the bartender not to open it so you can bring it back to your room and stash it in here. That's really nice if you have the drink package and want to save a few beers for enjoying on the balcony, or bringing ashore to Amber Cove, which is kind of like a private island for Carnival, but the Carnival drinks package isn't good there, which is a little bit annoying, honestly. Okay, so what did we like, what did we love, and what did we maybe not love so much about our time on the Carnival Horizon? Our first like, surprisingly enough, is going to be the food in the main dining room and the specialty restaurants. The food is a huge reason a lot of people go on cruise ships, and I thought the food on this ship was actually pretty good, for the most part. In the main dining room and the specialty restaurants we tried, I really can't complain about too much. There were some pretty big hits and a few misses that I will get into in a second, but the quality of the food on this ship actually pleasantly surprised me. Now, Carnival is what's kind of considered a family-friendly budget cruise line, so most people aren't going out here and expecting like Michelin star quality restaurants. You know, let's be real about that. But I thought the food in the main dining room and the specialty restaurants we tried were actually really good, or at least a lot better than I expected. Your mileage may vary here. Carnival is a budget line, so their food is not going to be as good as some of the high-end expensive ones, but you're not expecting that either. Temper your expectations, and you'll usually be happy. I think it's a great philosophy of life, actually. And you may have totally different opinions on here, and that's fine. But I will say, I'm not really a picky eater or even what you'd consider a foodie. I like most things. I'm happy usually with almost anything you put in front of me. So maybe there's a lot of you out here are thinking, oh man, Carnival's food is terrible. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's cool. Maybe I don't. But I was happy with just about everything I ordered. Probably the best meal I ordered in the main dining room here were the barbecue ribs they had one night. They were really flavorful, really tender, just fall off the bone tender. They were so good that I thought they may have actually been made in the Guy Fieri's Pig and Anchor barbecue restaurant that's also on board and also excellent. But that also leads me to what I thought was the worst meal I ordered in the main dining room, and that was the brisket. The ribs were so good that I thought that maybe they had a really good brisket too because of the barbecue place on board. But no, the brisket was a really big miss. It really wasn't brisket, it was more like a mediocre pot roast. And also one night we ordered a sushi boat for the table to share as an appetizer, which is an extra charge, and it was really average sushi. It kind of reminded me of like grocery store sushi. Not the worst thing I've ever had in my life, but I wouldn't order it again either. For specialty dining, we had lunch one day at Guy Fieri's Pig and Anchor Barbecue, and I thought the barbecue here was actually outstanding, like one of my favorite meals on the entire cruise. And they actually do it properly. They have a smoker outside where they smoke all the meats here, just outside along the promenade deck. And this is also one of the best bars on the ship too, especially if you're a whiskey fan. They've got a great selection here, and the bartenders here are great. They're a lot of fun, they're really personable, and they really know what they're doing. Some of the best cocktails on the ship right here. We were celebrating my birthday on board, so we went to the steakhouse one night for a special occasion dinner, Fahrenheit 555. This is an additional charge of $50 a person, and for that you get an appetizer, entree, and dessert. And I liked it. It was good. Just about as good as any good steakhouse you'll find on land. The service did feel a little bit rushed though. It wasn't bad, but I did kind of feel like we had to get in here. All our courses kind of came one after another, and we were out of there in maybe under an hour, which might be good if you're trying to catch a show or something like that, but in a steakhouse, I kind of want to absorb the vibe a little bit. I had the New York strip, and my wife Shannon over here had the filet. I ordered the lobster bisque for my appetizer, and it was good, but I really wish I had ordered the smoked oysters instead. Whenever another table ordered one of those, they smelled amazing, and I could hear other people in the restaurant raving about them, ooh and ah, every time one of them would show up at a table, so maybe next time. But something I didn't really love about the food on the Carnival Horizon was the food in the buffet. The food in the buffet was, for the most part, just okay. Nothing was like offensively bad or anything like that. I wouldn't say I hated it or anything, but it's mostly just the same mass-produced stuff to serve as many people as possible at once that you see on every cruise buffet. Most of it was just kind of, it's fine, I'll eat it, I guess. If you've been on a cruise before and you've had food in the buffet, you probably know what you're in for. And we only really ate here a few times, maybe for lunch. It was our go-to spot for breakfast most mornings, and maybe for lunch, maybe once or twice. For lunch, a lot of us would actually ditch the buffet and instead go to Guy's Burger Joint, which is really good and really well loved, and will usually have a pretty long line too. But don't worry, the line moves really fast. They've got a really efficient operation going on back there. And I love their fries too. They have a little bit of a kick to them that I like, but some people in our group weren't crazy about the fries because they were a little bit spicy. Blue Iguana Cantina, the fast Mexican food place on board, was another place that a lot of us really preferred to go to over the buffet. The service here is a bit slower since the ordering process is a little bit more complex than over at Guy's where you just throw on a burger and whatever. But here you have to kind of order your tacos, order your burritos, and it takes a little bit longer time. But it does still beat the buffet, and it's a great option for breakfast too. Great breakfast burritos and a big topping bar too. And of course, there's the ever-present pizza place in the back of the ship that seems to be always open, and it usually always has a really long line, but that line does move pretty quick, especially late at night where nothing else is really open. Everybody wants to be back here after the bars for the late night snack, and I thought the pizza was actually great, like really good pizza, surprisingly good, way better than it had to be. And because this place is always so busy and they always have pizzas cooking, you'll be getting a slice that pretty much goes directly from the oven to your plate, so it's not sitting around under a heat lamp or anything like that. But getting back to the buffet for a second, one thing I really didn't like was how there was no enforcement of hand washing, or really even a very easy and obvious way to wash your hands before you eat. They do have these hand washing stations kind of in there a little bit, but on other cruises I've been on, like with Royal Caribbean, they won't even let you in the buffet until you've washed your hands. And I think that's really smart because it kind of helps prevent outbreaks of norovirus and all that stuff on board. And so Carnival either just doesn't seem to care or take that too seriously, or maybe they don't even think it's a big deal. Something else I really liked about the Carnival Horizon was the elevators, and I know that's going to be a really unpopular opinion because in so many reviews and comments I've read online about this ship, the elevators always come up and there's always a lot of negative commentary about them. There's a lot of whining and complaining about how confusing they are and how hard they are to use. I've seen comments about how people just stopped using them on day one and took the stairs everywhere, and I just don't get it. These are what Carnival calls smart elevators, and instead of having an up or down button you press outside, then another button inside for the floor, there's a little touchscreen outside that you first use to select the floor you want to go to, and then that will tell you which elevator bank to take. That's it. It's not too difficult to understand. There's no buttons inside the elevator to choose a floor. You get in and it just takes you there. I found this really prevented that thing from happening where you push the button and when the elevator finally does show up, it's packed full of people and you can't even get on here. So you wait for another one and that one's packed too, and that just keeps on going over and over again. That didn't really happen on this cruise, and I have seen that happen on other cruises we've been on, but not really on this one. These are just really easy and efficient. You just need to know how they work. So yeah, I said it and I'll stand by it. I like these elevators and I hope this system gets used on more ships. Something I didn't like though was this ship was a bit warm in some spots, and this is another complaint I see online quite a bit. On certain parts of the ship, most notably in some spots in the buffet, especially right near the sliding doors and near the elevators and inside the elevators, it actually got pretty warm. You'd be around there and you might be sweating a little bit and you're inside an air-conditioned ship and it was kind of warm. Now this wasn't everywhere, this wasn't even most places. Staterooms, perfectly comfortable. Inside bars and entertainment venues and restaurants, perfectly comfortable. But around the buffet and inside some of the elevators, it got kind of warm. It got kind of sticky in there. And in the buffet area, there was even like some condensation forming on the tile floors that made the tiles really slippery. Something else I really liked about this ship was the ship's size. Now, the Carnival Horizon is just over 133,000 gross tons, and it's about 1,061 feet long. That's pretty average to even more of a modest-sized ship these days, especially when you see some of the absolute beasts that Royal Caribbean has been building lately. And after cruising one of those monsters a couple years ago, the Allure of the Seas, I was afraid this ship might feel small, and you know what? It didn't. It didn't feel small at all. It felt like a really nice size. It was plenty large enough to be able to walk around and explore and have plenty of things to see and do, but it was also small enough that it was really easy to get from place to place easily. If you had to run back to your room to get something you forgot, not a big deal, you're never that far away from anything. And it was easy to quickly get from venue to venue for events. On those other really big ships, it can be a real pain if you need to get back to your room or go somewhere else on the ship quickly. So I really like the size of this ship. I thought it was a really nice happy medium, not too big, not too small, just about right. Something I didn't love about this ship were the Havana Suites. Now, this is not a dig against the Havana Suites themselves. We didn't stay in one of them, and from everything I've seen and heard, they look great. Perfectly lovely, and I'm sure they're a great time and very nice, but what I don't love about them is the concept itself. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the Havana Suites are Carnival's take on the ship within a ship concept that most of the big cruise lines have been adding to all their newer ships lately. It's a special section of the ship that's reserved for those who decide to pay a little bit more, and for that you get what's supposed to be a nicer room, and you get access to a few more amenities. Most notably is a private pool that's all the way in the back of the ship with a really nice view. What I don't love about this is that by offering this space right here, and it's a really nice space, and you only offer it to a select few guests, it kind of makes the experience for everybody else on board just a little bit worse. You're removing access to some prime real estate right here on the ship for everyone else to enjoy, and everyone else used to get to enjoy spots like this until they introduced this concept, which only makes the other pools, the other bars, the other outdoor spaces a little bit more crowded, a little bit less for everyone else to do, only for the benefit of a relatively small number of people who decided to pay for this. Now the ship is big, but it's only so big, and it kind of stinks that they're paywalling a really nice part of it. If it were up to me, what I'd rather see, and it's not up to me, of course, but I'd really like to see this space reserved for those over 21 and turn this into the adults-only Serenity section of the ship. But I know cruise lines love the money that they're making from being able to upcharge for stuff like this, so I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. If you've stayed in the Havana Suites, though, I would really like to know what you thought of it. Please leave a comment and tell me what you thought about it. It's not a dig against you. I would love to stay in these. I just don't like that they're kind of walling off a really nice part of the ship for everybody else. All right, like number 4. There is a huge variety of things to do on this ship for all ages. So the Carnival Horizon is a modest-sized ship, but it is really dense with things to do all around the ship. And nobody in our group ever got bored, and we had a large group of 12 people spanning 3 generations. Grandparents, little kids, us, everybody was able to keep themselves entertained. Of course, there's all the eating and drinking and laying around the pool. That's a given on a cruise. But the sports court had lots of fun things to do like mini golf, foosball, pool, ping pong, soccer ball, billiards, and a full-size basketball court all the way in the back of the ship. There's a running track up here if you want to burn off some of those calories. but this is also where some of the most unique attractions are. There's the Sky Ride. It's kind of this weird bicycle type thing that you can pedal around a track that wraps around the upper decks of the back of the ship. And the ropes course. I love the ropes course. Now, I've had some of my own struggles chickening out on ropes courses in the past, but this time I told myself I was going to do it. I'm going to force myself to finish this one. And I did, and I felt great about it. I went around this thing 3 times, and I think I even helped me conquer a fear I had. So, thanks. It was lots of fun. There's a mini water park up here on the pool deck called Waterworks, and it does have a pretty impressive number of slides packed into a pretty tight little area up here. Some of the kids in our group spent a little bit of time up here, but not as much as you would think. The lines for these slides actually got really long sometimes, especially on sea days, so this might be one of those things you can do on a port day if you decide to stay on board, or maybe if you're back early before the rest of the crowd does. But on this ship, there was almost always something going on somewhere. Live music was really easy to find on the ship most hours. At night, there's stand-up comedy that was really popular. And the big production shows in the main theater and some of the shows like Deal or No Deal and Family Feud. And most days and nights, they'll play movies up on the big screen above the pool on the Lido deck to hang out and watch. The ship even has an IMAX theater on board with currently running movies you can watch. But some of our absolute favorite events, things we all love that you really don't want to miss, were the 80s party on the Lido deck and the silent disco on the Lido deck. These were both a blast for all ages. Our kids loved them, I loved them. Everybody had a good time here. The 80s party was great. Lots of fun, lots of people in costumes, dressed up in neon and big hair, singing at the top of our lungs, all kinds of big 80s crowd pleasers. The ones that get everyone shouting like Living on a Prayer and Don't Stop Believin'. Yeah, maybe kind of corny and cliche for the time, but it was really fun. The silent disco is something that all the kids in our group were really excited about, and it was also a really good time. If you have no idea what this is, you'll get a headset to wear with a button that lets you choose between 3 different DJs that are playing live up on one of the decks, and they're spinning tunes and trying to get more people in the crowd to turn to their channel. And it's hilarious because with headphones on, all you hear is the music and you see everybody dancing, but you take them off for a second and you won't hear any music, but instead you'll hear this cacophony of people singing along to 3 different songs at once. It's really fun and you really shouldn't miss it. But while there is so much going on this ship, one of the things I didn't love about it was how some of the activities kind of run right up against each other. Some of the more popular things like the comedians, the deck parties, and the theater shows would have start and end times that would either overlap or butt right up against each other. So you might need to decide which show you want to miss, or you'd have to run out real quick to catch the next thing as soon as the thing you just saw ended. So if you have FOMO, this can be a problem. It's really hard to do everything. Stand-up comedy might end at 9 p.m., but the next big show in the theater starts at 9 p.m., so you're going to have to pick one or you're going to be late to the other. And if you're late, oftentimes you can't even find a seat. I just wish they had maybe an extra 15 or 20 minutes of pad time between some of the really big popular events. Something else I liked was the really fun and energetic atmosphere on this ship. Carnival's entire brand identity is that they are the fun ships. These are the parties at sea, so the vibe tends to be pretty high energy all the time. Now that might not be something that everybody's looking for. Some of the shorter, cheaper Carnival cruises do have kind of a bad reputation as booze cruises where a lot of wild stuff happens. This was an 8-day cruise down to the Southern Caribbean, so we really did not see any of that. The longer cruises tend to be a little bit more chill as far as the people go, but it does still have a fun party atmosphere on board. They have a high energy thing going on all the time. There's a lot of activities. The pool is really loud and busy. That's not to say it's like that everywhere. We did find there were still a few places on the ship to relax, but the main pool deck was almost always a party, which is going to be a pro and a con for some of you. I'm personally kind of somewhere in the middle. There's times where I want to be in the middle of the action, and then there's times where I want to hide in the jacuzzi with a margarita in my hand, kind of keeping away from the loud teenagers. And that takes me to my next dislike. There wasn't quite enough of these outdoor spaces to relax. There are a few, but the ratio of party atmosphere to chill is pretty skewed in the party direction on this ship, and really on Carnival ships in general. Mostly this is going to be up on the Lido deck, up where the pools are. There are still some chill places on board, but I don't think there's really enough of them outdoors. There is this Serenity Lounge, which is up toward the front of the ship where kids are not allowed. Up here they have lots of loungers to lie on, a bar, and a few hot tubs. And this is a pretty large area, but it's not quite large enough. During the day, this area was really crowded, and it was hard to get a chair at times or find a spot in the jacuzzis. which tells me there's a pretty big demand for this kind of space. And that goes back to what I said about that Havana Suite pool. If only they'd open that up to everybody as an adults only, more quiet area, I think the experience would be just a little bit better for everybody on board. Next thing I really liked about the ship was a great variety of spaces to hang out on board. If you like live music, there's Ocean Plaza, and they had either karaoke or a live rock band playing several times a day, almost every day. There's the Piano Bar, a place that kind of became a favorite of ours. There's the Havana Bar, a really nice space that also had live music at night, that despite the name, is open to everybody. You don't need to be staying in the Havana Suites to hang out in here. And there's the Atrium Bar that has this giant LED tornado-like thing in the center. And when it comes to this area right here, you may have heard the saying, pictures don't do it justice. This is one of those areas that I think is the opposite of that. The opposite is true. This big tornado of LED lights looks cool, and it looks cool in pictures, but this whole area felt a little bit soulless some of the times. There was some great live music being performed up here, which I really liked. But this whole space kind of felt a little bit like something you'd see in Vegas in the 90s, or like a mini version of some early 2000s shopping mall, probably with the word Mills somewhere in the title. It's not a bad space, just a little dull, that's all. Another space I really liked was the Skybox Sports Bar. It's not very big, but it's a fun place to hang out and watch a game. On our cruise, the Stanley Cup and NBA Finals were both going on, so this place was really busy. They also have one of those digital Texas Hold'em poker tables in here, but I never saw anybody play, not even once, and I wanted to play. I was kind of bummed. And there's a digital sports betting kiosk in here, so you can place a bet and have a little action on the game while you're playing. I won $20 on a Florida Panthers game in here one night. I know, high roller. But two of the best places on the ship to get a cocktail are going to be the Alchemy Bar and the bar at Pig and Anchor. That's Guy Fieri's barbecue place. These were the only two bars on the entire ship that really know what they were doing when it came to making drinks. The bartenders at both of these places were a lot of fun, really engaging, and seemed to really enjoy what they were doing. And that's going to take me to my next dislike, the consistency of service. You may have just noticed I said that Alchemy Bar and Pig and Anchor were the two best bars on the ship, and that's because they were really the only places on the ship that consistently made a good cocktail the way they're supposed to be made, and with a little fun and a little bit of flair. The bartenders were fun to hang out with. They even kind of drew a little crowd of regulars every night. But some of the other bars and quick service grab-and-go places, it was a little hit or miss. Or you might order a burrito at the Blue Iguana that took forever to get because the line was moving slow and you could just tell the person behind the counter really didn't want to be there that day. And I get that. Cruise work is hard. They work long hours, so maybe they need a little extra help. Get a few more people back there. Let's speed things up a bit. Maybe send a few of them to bartender classes. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a huge problem or anything like that, but it did feel like some of the places on board were being managed a lot better than others. Another thing we really liked on the ship, and we really liked this, was the small venue entertainment. The smaller venue, less crowded, less high-profile entertainment on the ship was actually some of our favorite stuff on the cruise. Piano Bar 88 turned out to be one of our favorite little venues on the whole ship. Who would have thought? In the late afternoon to early evening, the atmosphere is really chill and relaxed with a guy just kind of playing instrumental pieces with no vocals. But later in the evening, it turned into one of the most fun places on the ship, and lots of us kept wanting to go back. Kids, grown-ups, everybody. A singer and piano player named Dara Jaslin would really get the crowd going with a really fun personality, leading the place in some loud sing-alongs mixed with corny dad jokes. And this show actually gets pretty raunchy and hilarious after 10 p.m. when they kick all the kids out and it becomes an 18 and up venue. Ocean Plaza is a sort of generic general event space toward the back of the ship that hosts events like trivia and other games, and it's the home of the Horizon Rock Band, another act on board that we always seem to keep gravitating towards. They would play lots of themed sets throughout the week, 90s rock one day, 80s hits another, Motown night, stuff like that. Really talented and lots of fun. And the Limelight Lounge is another mixed-use venue that serves as the Punchliner Comedy Club and then becomes an 18 and up dance club late at night. This place was always packed. Didn't matter if it was for comedy or the club, there was always a long line to get in here before any event. So if you want to see comedy in here, get in here early. This place is pretty large and seats a lot of people, but the line can stretch like halfway down the ship to get in here, and it fills up fast. Something we didn't like or weren't really crazy about were the larger production shows. That may be a bit of a surprise because those are really popular. But as much as we liked the smaller venues and entertainment, we weren't really blown away by the larger production shows in the main theater, Liquid Lounge. I'm not saying they were bad, and we didn't feel like walking out or anything. They were just fine. They call these the playlist production shows, and it's mostly a lot of singing and dancing to cover songs. But both my wife and I found some of the arrangements to be kind of weird. Lots of others really seem to be enjoying these shows, so it could just be us. I don't know, that's fair. But what really kind of ruined it for both Shannon and I was how badly the audio was mixed in here. It was really muddy and really loud at the same time, so like some of the instruments would be too low. And others would sound like this. It was like soul-piercingly loud and annoying at times, and both Shannon and I said this gave us a bit of a headache. But like I said, your mileage may vary very wildly with this one, and you might love these. We weren't really crazy about them. But something that all the kids in our group liked were the kids clubs. Now, I can't personally attest to these because I spent no time whatsoever in these spots, but the kids club on board, Camp Ocean and Club O2, were both really popular with all the kids we had along on this trip. We had my kids that are teenagers, and then they had some younger cousins on board, and they all loved spending time in here. And in fact, they would want to go back in here on their own and spend some time in these spots. So that's a great sign that they must be doing something right in here. The kids are having fun, and you don't have to feel guilty about leaving them in here to go spend some time in the kids club while you go out to have some adult time on your own. And to be totally honest, I'm not even really sure what goes on in here. I think there's like some video games and stuff, but the kids didn't really talk about it too much. They said they had fun, they met some friends, so maybe it's like Fight Club. Is it Carnival's Fight Club? I don't know. Are they even allowed to talk about it? Maybe I shouldn't be recommending this. Something we didn't really like, none of us really liked this, was the casino on this ship. Not so much the casino itself, but you always had to walk through the casino when you were on that floor, and the casino was always very busy and always very smoky. It was one of my biggest pet peeves on how you always had to walk through here. There's no way around it or any other detours or alternate routes. If you're on this floor, you're always walking through the casino to get from one end of the ship to the other. I'm sure that's by design so they can catch a few people who might want to throw a few bucks into a slot on the way through, but I think it's kind of tacky. There's always going to be a parade of people coming and going through here, including kids, and you might not want to bring your kids into a casino. I totally understand that. And there's some people who might have had some gambling issues in the past, and they're forced to walk through there and walk through that temptation. And it's right there, and I do not love that. Those are just a few things you might want to know about and think about. Personally, the thing that really bothered me the most was just how smoky it was in here all the time, and that made it pretty unpleasant to walk through, and there's no avoiding that at all. I want to end on a high note, so I'm going to save my final like for last and do one more dislike. And that was that this ship did tend to rock and move a lot more than any other ship I've ever been on, so seasickness could be an issue for some of you. I don't know if it's like this all the time. On this cruise, we went to the Southern Caribbean, which is known for being a very windy spot. So when we got further and further south and closer to our destinations down there, the seas were really kind of rocking, and this ship, you could really feel it moving. I don't ever get seasick, but I took some Dramamine just in case, and I started wearing one of those little patches behind my ear. My daughter did get seasick. She's never been seasick before. She's been on cruises, she's been on boats, and she spent one day of the cruise throwing up in the cabin, which was not fun. Kind of ruined a day of the cruise for her. So that's something you're definitely going to want to consider if you're taking the ship to the Southern Caribbean. It may not even be the ship. It may just be this destination. The Southern Caribbean is a very windy place. The seas are going to be rocking, so you might want to consider preparing for something like that. All right, finally, the last thing I liked about the ship was the value. I did think this ship and this itinerary offered a lot for the money. When we started researching big extended family cruises for 3 families and a bunch of kids, our first thought was to look at Royal Caribbean again. We had a great time with them last time, but we wanted to find a cruise that had an interesting itinerary to places we've never been before. It had to leave out of Florida, and it had to have dates and a price tag that worked for everybody. So when searching, we saw this one, and it was priced a fair bit lower than other cruises on comparable ships on other cruise lines. So we decided to go for it, and I'm really happy we did. I thought the value we got for an 8-day cruise to the Southern Caribbean was great. Nothing is ever going to be perfect, of course, especially on the more budget-oriented lines like Carnival, let's be honest. But I was pleasantly surprised, and yeah, I would definitely book another cruise on this ship again. And I would recommend it for others too. If you're the kind of person that can have fun no matter what you're doing, you can overlook some of the small little things, I think you'll like it. I think you'll like this ship. We sure did. My entire family liked this cruise. We really heard no complaints from anybody. We all had a great time. Well, thanks for watching. That's going to do it for our list of the things we liked and loved, maybe did not like as much, or were slightly annoyed by on the Carnival Horizon and Carnival ships in general. If you like this video and you want to see more about stuff to do in Florida and occasionally cruise ships, please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll be notified the next time we post a video, and tell one other friend or maybe send this along to somebody who might want to see this. Thanks a lot. Talk to you guys next time.